All right, Isaiah 41, once again, of course, you already know, God is amazing. In this chapter where he gives us a different perspective on judgment, let's call it proof. Understanding that verse 1 is going to call the peoples together for judgment, but not the judgment that he would issue on them, but allowing them to reason together. As verse 1, as we said, is going to say, let us draw near for judgment, as verses 2 through 4 are going to lay out the case for what God has actually done. Thus our title, Proof. It is not simply him intimidating us into belief. It is a chapter that helps us to understand that even though it might not be obvious, if we seek, as Hebrews 11 verse 6 will say, as we say from time to time in the New King James Version, especially if we diligently seek, he has promised that we will be able to find, similar to what he says here, the proof that he is, as he will lay some of that out in a kind of introduction in verses 2 through 4. Verses 5 through 7 going on to talk about the ways in which we can grope for explanations, sometimes reaching out to fables and stories that we will attach to idols, or as we've called them before, images that we would like to give credit for, or in some ways would like to place our future hopes for success in. He's going to, however, call Israel to recall that he is the one who has basically bailed them out in the past and who is willing to help guide them in future days, offering them three general types of proof of the work that he has done. Verses 11 and 12, talking about the ways in which he has subdued enemies that were too large for them, understanding that in life, if things are too easy, we do not always appreciate them appropriately. However, looking at the deeper history behind these two verses, we see over and over again as Israel strayed, he would allow their enemies to grow stronger and stronger to the point where Israel was not able to deal with them, at which point he would use that as an opportunity to once again get their attention by overwhelming enemies that were too overwhelming for them. Going on, however, he is going to talk about the ways in which they should behold, the way in which he will strengthen the work of their hands, making otherwise difficult tasks relatively effortless to the point where they will be able to rejoice at the things that they are able to accomplish. As he will go on to talk about a third proof, that being the way in which he will be able to address the fact that even though there may still be poor and needy among them, the way he will be able to provide for them, presumably in ways that they will know that they really can't provide for them on their own. Understanding that even in later passages, God will talk about the ways in which, or Christ will talk about the ways in which you will always have the needy among you. He seems to use a divine, or as divine evidence, the way in which when they are actually in a proper relationship with him, the way God himself will care for their poor and needy in the ways that other nations, godless nations, simply can't. Going back to the days of Solomon, understanding that one of the things that astounded the Queen of Sheba is the way in which even his servants were well cared for. Going on, though, he is going to, at verse 21, basically shift the burden of proof, for lack of a better term, to the idols on which some have chosen to place their hope. First of all, calling them to prophesy if they truly are gods in verses 22 through 23. Going on to say that in verse 24, if they are truly gods, show us the work that they are actually able to accomplish. Going on in verses 26 through roughly the end of the chapter, to challenge them to show us their wisdom in much the same way he challenged them to prophesy or foretell the future. With the thing that most stood out to me from this chapter quite possibly being the fact that God, in fact, does call us to have faith, but it is not a faith that is devoid of proof. The challenge in life quite possibly being, as we mentioned in previous chapters, the way in which life can leave us so exhausted that we feel as though we have nothing left to seek, much less diligently seek the proof that he is, and that he is a rewarder, as Hebrews 11:6 says, of those who diligently seek him. Understanding that one of the rewards of diligently seeking the proof of God is, as we've mentioned before, overcoming the appeal of hustles that have a lot of truth in them, but actually are based on a lot less proof than there is for the God we might have been conditioned to ignore. which is why we sometimes say, my prayer for you is my prayer for me. And God give us a heart, not only to seek the proof that he exists, but to diligently seek the proof that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him.